Well, now, that was 1938. The war started in 1939. I was still at school. About 12 months later, the bombing started. And of course, we used to have planes coming over the school. And whenever the sirens had gone, we had to go, particularly at night time usually, we had to go down into the cellars, into the old cellars in this old building. And when the sirens stopped, said the thing was over, we came up. So as boys, of course, it was quite exciting, this, you see. One evening we were down there and we heard a terrific explosion, and one of them had landed in the grounds of the school. So that caused a lot of interest, of course. Now, I left school in 1941, and I left really before I'd completed the education and got results I hoped for. I hoped to be a doctor, really, going to medicine. Unfortunately, I hadn't taken certain subjects during my earlier years, which were necessary to take medicine. So I had to change my mind on that. And eventually I decided to take ophthalmic optics, optometrists today, ophthalmic opticians in my young days. And so when I left school, I started my study in that subject. But of course, in 1942, I became 18, so I had to register. By this time, I had given things a lot of thought as to what I should do, and I was quite convinced that deciding to register a conscientious objection was the only thing I could do. So that's what I did. And in 1940, I think it was March 43, I was called to the tribunal. Tribunals were set up to decide whether you were really a true conscientious objection or perhaps just trying to get out of it or something. But in my case, it was in Manchester. It was like a courthouse, really. And they had a judge and 3 other people on the panel. And the judge happened to be Judge Burgess, who you probably don't know anything about, but we heard that, well, some people called him the hanging judge because, of course, hanging was occurring at that time, and he had a pretty, not a very good reputation, obviously very strict. And before going, I was a little bit concerned of what, you know, how he was going to deal with me. So anyway, eventually the day came. What happened? You had to make a statement, first of all, write it out, send it up to them, and you could choose to have 2 witnesses. And also you could have 2 people writing in support to say what your character was. But anyway, this is the, I don't know if you can see, that is the original document, which I still managed to find some months ago in a drawer. And I'll just read a little bit of the statements I made at that time. And this was it, in 1943, just an excerpt. Believing that I do, that there is something of God in every man, and being convinced that Christ's teaching of love exemplified in his life is the only true way of life, I feel that I cannot take part in the prosecution of war. I endeavour to serve the community to the best of my ability, but I claim the right to act according to the dictates of my conscience. I applied to the two sentences in between, but continue. I applied to be registered unconditionally in the Register of Conscientious Objectors. This is the only registration that I can conscientiously accept, for I feel impelled to make my protest against conscription in all its forms as being a violation of true liberty. Well, I sent that up, and as I say, you were called to the tribunal, and you had to stand there as you would in court, and you had your witnesses on each side of you. And of course, the questions were thrown at you, first of all, by the judge, and then by the other members of the panel. Of course, obviously, there were questions which were trying to catch you out, you know, sort of things to do just to see if you really had thought through what decision you made. Anyway, they had the option, the tribunal has the option of either giving unconditional exemption, conditional exemption, non-combatant corps, or being refused completely. I was given conditional exemption, and I think the condition then was to go into agriculture. Now, I'd gone to the tribunal asking for unconditional exemption, and you are allowed to appeal it about the decision. I appealed to another court, in effect, a different group of people, and they added, I think, hospital work to it.